Link took a deep breath of the cool breeze buffeting him as he rode his horse across the fields of Lanayru, passing over rolling hills and across wooden bridges, heading for the wetlands he could see in the distance. The ride had been fairly smooth since he had left Hateno village only a few days prior, where a surprisingly young-looking elderly researcher had given him a helpful, though rather small, hand. Chuckling at the memory of the little girl's snappiness, he reached down and took in hand the small rectangular device that had been hanging from his belt as he traveled. Tapping its smooth surface, the device brightened, revealing a surprisingly detailed map, or at least part of one. An icon indicated where the slate was located, and as Link's horse galloped, the icon moved with it. Up ahead on the map was a dark blue void. Looking up, Link scanned the wetlands, noticing the large looming tower in the distance. It was shadowed by the sun behind it, but its center still glowed with the illuminated orange light that traveled from bottom to top.
There's the tower. It shouldn't be too much longer now. Zora's domain should be right up the mountain path, just like Pro said.
Replacing the slate on his hip, he took the reins and spurred his horse forward toward the bridges crossing the flooded landscape. As the ground beneath his horse's hooves changed from dirt and grass to wooden planks and ropes, they rode over rippling water and across desolate islands where ruins of buildings were scattered, some still safe on the island's surfaces, others sinking into the water's current. The ride was simple enough, and yet Link soon tugged on the reins, pulling his steed to a stop. The bridges had begun to change. Thin poles had started to appear on the sides, sticking up from the water with large bones stuck through them, the skeletons of gigantic fish. Further down were even larger structures made from bones and other pale materials, forming fish heads and tails that were being used as shelters, where barrels filled with weapons and rotting foods were stored. A few creatures patrolled the area, large, hunched monsters with short legs, long arms, and bodies covered in green scales. Their tails curled and swayed, and long snouts protruded forward, each crowned with curved horns above the nostrils. As if their scales weren't armor enough, they wore crudely forged metal plating along their bending backs. Furrowing his brow, Link took the slate from his hip again. After a few taps on the screen, he raised it with both arms, aiming it toward the distant creatures. With another tap and a soft click, he lowered it and read the words that appeared.
Los Alphos. They seem a little bit more competent than bokoblins, and well, that looks like an entire stronghold of them.
Lowering the slate, Link scanned the surrounding area. He could either turn back and find a much longer route, or he could take them on. Glancing over his shoulder, he looked at the sword and shield on his back, an old broadsword and a circular wooden shield he'd picked up on his travels. After a few moments of thought, a small grin appeared on his lips. He climbed down from the saddle. He might as well get some training in before reaching the domain. Assuring his horse he would return, he moved carefully down the bridge, trying to make as little sound as possible while counting the Lizalfos in the stronghold. There were 6, 2 up front closest to him, 2 in the far back, and 2 guarding opposite sides of the branching bridges. All of them had a habit of hopping, as if unable to sit still long enough to stare in one direction. It allowed Link to creep close, until one hopped, its eyes darting right at him. Link immediately drew his sword and dashed forward, slicing at the Lizalfos' torso before it could shriek. But the beast didn't fall. Leaping into the air, it opened its large mouth and revealed a long, slimy tongue. With a battle cry, it flung its tongue down onto Link's back, slamming him face first into the wood. As its partner landed, the second Lizalfos shrieked, an ear-splitting call that alerted the entire camp, while drawing its bent, jagged sword and crudely constructed metal shield. Wincing, Link began to push himself back up.
Okay. They hit harder than I thought they would. Oh, it's okay. I got this.
Suddenly, his ears twitched as he caught a different kind of call from the second monster. He glanced up to see it lunging toward him, a sword raised and ready to strike. Scrambling to his feet, Link dodged backward, watching the bent blade dig into the bridge's planks. Shield at the ready, he looked up just in time to see the other 4 Lizalfos darting toward the battle, all of them bent low and zigzagging across the bridges. It almost looked like they were gliding over the wood.
Oh, that's not good. I gotta think.
Before he could finish his thought, the first Lizalfos vaulted over the second, having pulled a spear from its back, and leveled the tip at Link's head. He tilted his head to the side, letting the spear whistle past his ears. Drawing a deep breath, Link held the air in his lungs, causing time to slow. Sword poised, he pivoted on his heel, spinning in a tight circle until the blade slammed against the creature's skull. Releasing his breath, he watched as the creature's lifeless body tumbled off the bridge and into the water below.
Okay, number 1 is down. Only 2 through 5 to go.
Dashing forward again, he mimicked the second Lizalfos, his current target, and leapt, bringing his broadsword down and slamming it against the monster's skull. Its body crumpled to the ground, dropping the bent sword and shield onto the bridge with a clatter. Another shriek rang out. Link looked up to see the third lizard darting toward him, zigzagging just the same way it had when it first arrived, its sword held out. It swung the moment it was in range, but Link leapt backward, flipping out the way as the sword swept beneath him. Again, time began to slow. The instant his boots hit the ground, he surged forward and unleashed a barrage of strikes across the beast's chest and head. When time snapped back into motion, the third Lizalfos flew away, its lifeless body tumbling before coming to a lifeless stop. Link barely had time to breathe. His ears twitched at a soft whizzing sound, the unmistakable hiss of a blade cutting through the air. He snapped his gaze around just in time to spot something flying toward him. Ducking, he let it sail over his head and watched it arc back toward its owner, the fourth lizard. Boomerang? That was his first thought, but the moment the Lizalfos caught the weapon, he realized it was only one of the bent swords the creature had been using.
He can use them as boomerangs?
Before he could finish his thought, the fifth lizard jumped at him. Its body spun through the air, tail whipping toward the intruder's torso in a desperate attempt to knock Link off the bridge. But before its scales could connect, Link managed to raise his shield just in time. The tail slammed into the circular wood, cracking it and sending splinters flying. Before Link could adjust, the monster leaned back and shot its long tongue at him, firing it like a cannon. The impact shattered the shield and hurled him backward across the bridge. Now armed with only a sword, Link pushed himself to his feet, rolling his struck shoulder as he spotted the lizard charging again. Gritting his teeth, he glanced down at the splintered remains of his shield, and something else. The second Lizalfos' sword. Snatching it up, Link hurled it forward. The oncoming lizard halted, preparing to defend itself, but the spinning sword sailed right past it. Instead, it struck the fifth Lizalfos from earlier, knocking the creature's weapon from its hands. Before the fourth could process what had happened, another sword struck it square in the face, though not one of the bent ones its kin had been using. Link's broadsword shattered on impact, killing the lizard instantly as its body collapsed beside its fallen brothers, its weapon clattering to the planks. Grabbing the dropped sword, Link dashed forward and leapt, driving the off-centered tip down toward the disoriented fifth and final Lizalfos beneath him. The blade plunged into the creature's neck, and with a final shriek, it too fell lifeless to the bridge floor. Pulling the bent sword free, Link scanned the camp to ensure no more lizards were lurking in the shadows. Once he was certain the area was clear, he exhaled a long breath of relief.
Okay. I have some work to do. I need to be more careful next time.
With that in mind, he collected whatever new gear he could find, deciding it was useful to keep the boomerang blades and metal shields, before whistling for his horse. When the steed clopped across the bridge and stopped next to him, Link prepared to climb into the saddle. Yet, a sudden call from a woman stopped him.
You really cleared them all out.
Taking his foot off the stirrup, Link looked around. That was odd. He was sure he hadn't seen any other creature on the bridge, let alone a person.
Hey, down here.
Was the voice coming from the water? Curiously, he stepped to the edge of the bridge and peered over. There, treading in the water, was a person. Or was it a fish? It was a combination of both. A lanky humanoid creature with reddish aquatic scales covering her body, fins protruding from her arms and hips, and even a long fish-like tail hanging from the back of her head. After a moment, it clicked in Link's mind. This was a Zora.
Are you able to hear me from up there?
Yeah?
That was amazing. I watched you take on those monsters all by yourself. You must be a Hylian. A real Hylian. I mean, you are Hylian, right?
I mean, I'm pretty sure I am. I think.
He crouched down to get a slightly closer look at her. Her large yellow eyes sparkled.
Oh my. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. It really is a Hylian. A real Hylian. I knew it. I so knew it. I'm Tona. Nice to meet you. Now, what are you waiting for? Go see Prince Sidon.
Link raised an eyebrow.
Prince Sidon?
With an eager nod, the Zora turned in the water and pointed toward the river and mountains he had been headed toward earlier.
He's waiting at the Indigo Bridge just upstream of Zora River. Please, listen to what Prince Sidon has to say. I know it's sudden, but you'll understand everything once you get there. Trust me, you'll see.
Before Link could either accept or refuse, the Zora woman dove beneath the surface and disappeared into the depths. After taking a moment to process what had just happened, Link pushed himself back up and looked toward the Lanayru mountain range.
Well, it's a good thing I was already headed in that direction, isn't it?
Episode 1. Activating Ancient Activity. Crickets echoed through the darkened lands of Necluda, singing a tune for the moon above them. They were so loud that even those inside houses or camps could hear them. Even those in stables weren't spared from the insects' chirps. Unfortunately for Link, He was in one of these stables and couldn't hear their ambient song at all. His ears were filled instead with the constant rambles of the stable's master and his stablehand.
Look at that beauty. She's absolutely gorgeous. I always knew Link was a special lad, but who would have guessed he would have been able to pull a lady like that? Color me impressed.
Link stood at the front of the stable's interior desk, annoyed and tired as he watched the two twins behind it stroke their goatees. They were deep in discussion with each other, acting as if Link didn't exist while they stared at the golden-haired woman he had entered the dimly lit, tent-like building with. She was happily sitting on the edge of one of the many beds lining the stable's tarp walls, scrolling through the menus of the ancient device in her hands.
She must be pretty smart if she's able to tinker with those old machine things. I think Teely called them ancient parts. He takes them to some researcher up in Hatano. So she's beautiful and smart. Link sure knows how to pick 'em.
Can I rent our beds now?
Link had been grumpily holding his rupee bag at the ready for some time. Both stablemen glanced at him with teasing glints in their eyes.
Oh, 2 beds, huh? Are you sure you don't just need the one?
I've never seen any of your other customers share a single bed.
Of course you haven't, because there's more financial gain in renting 2 beds instead of 1. For our best patron, though, we'll make an exception. Consider it a discount.
Tasseren gleefully rested his elbow on the countertop.
What's that? You could spend the 40 rupees it would cost for 2 regular beds for 1 soft bed, you know.
Furrowing his brow even more, Link dug into his rupee bag and pulled out 2 red gems. The stable workers raised their eyebrows in surprise.
There. 40 rupees for 2 regular beds, please.
With that, he turned away toward the bed Zelda was sitting on, hearing the stableman laughing behind him and calling him no fun. With a small sigh, he arrived at Zelda's side. She looked up the moment he came to a stop.
Welcome back. It sounds like you had quite the time renting our beds.
With a frown, Link glanced back at the 2 still laughing Stablemasters.
That's one way to put it.
Giggling, Zelda scooted over on the bed and patted the space beside her. Taking the hint, Link sat. The moment he was at her side again, her attention returned to the Sheikah slate, swiping her finger across the glowing map.
Are you sure you're alright with a regular bed? I can afford to get you a soft bed. It's much better than one of these regular ones.
I told you, I'm more than happy taking a regular bed. I'm not a princess anymore, so we must be wary of our finances. Unless you'd prefer to take their offer and share a soft bed, that is.
Link frowned, while Zelda's smile widened just a touch.
Well?
Being out here isn't like being at home. We have multiple beds here.
I see. That's too bad.
While Link raised an eyebrow at the last comment, she allowed the slate's front to darken and continued.
Regardless, I wouldn't have felt right morally allowing you to take a regular bed while I accepted a soft one. We're of the same status now, so that would be unfair.
I wouldn't have minded.
The same way I don't. I'm keeping the regular bed. Forgive me, Link, but my mind won't change.
Alright. Suit yourself. What were you looking at on the slate?
Just the map. A route to Zora's domain. I know I was a little nervous leaving Katena this morning, but now that we're out here, I'm a little excited. I didn't realize how I missed being on the road. I'm glad we aren't simply teleporting there.
Yeah, you made it very clear you wanted to go by horse. I'm glad you did, though. I prefer traveling by horse, too.
It's peaceful. It's allowing me to clear my mind a bit. It also gives me time to contemplate what I'll say to King Dorephan once we arrive.
Link noticed her smile soften at the thought of meeting the Zora King.
Remember what I told you yesterday. He won't blame you.
And I still believe your words. I truly do.
After a pause, she lifted her head, her smile returning.
Besides, we need to gather data. If we only teleport to our destinations, we can't inspect the landscape and see how much malice still corrupts the land. If we're to learn why monsters are still in Hyrule, then we need to thoroughly investigate as we travel. It's a necessity.
As long as you don't do anything too dangerous, You may have a little training now, but you're still just a beginner.
And when the time comes that I need to put my newfound skills to the test, I'll make sure to do my best. Whatever errors I may make, I believe in you to protect me one way or another.
I'm glad you have so much faith in me.
I always did, and always will.
They stared at each other in silence, taking in each other's eyes before, finally, a slight blush appeared on Link's cheeks. Quietly clearing his throat, he stood from the bed, brushing his bangs out of his eyes.
We should get some sleep. We've got a long day of riding tomorrow, and we need to make sure we're well rested so we can stay alert.
Yes, you're right.
Zelda used a finger to brush a loose strand of golden hair out of her eyes.
It is getting a bit late.
Yeah.
Awkwardly, Link glanced out at the stable's open entrance, watching the stars sparkle in the night sky.
Well, if you need anything, I'll be in the bed right next to you. Just give me a shake.
Thank you, Link. I will.
With a soft smile, Link turned and stepped toward the neighboring bed, beginning to unbuckle the baldric that hung over his shoulder, keeping the legendary purple-winged sword on his back. Before he could settle in, Zelda called his name again. When he turned and met the sincerity in her eyes, she spoke once more.
I'm happy to be on this journey with you.
Link felt as though something in his chest had stopped working for a moment. It was a certain pulse that had been missed? Internally shrugging it off, he gave a slight bow of his head before taking the Master Sword off his back. Resting it against the corner between the tarp wall and his bed's headrest, he climbed into the bed, shifted until he found the most comfortable position, and closed his eyes. His ears twitched as he listened to Zelda settle into her own bed, the sheets rustling under her weight before going quiet as her breathing slowed. If only he were able to fall asleep with such ease. Instead, he lay awake, his eyes studying the darkness behind his eyelids as he rested quietly on the bed. It was strange. It had been over a month since he had slept in a bed alone, and it felt rather spacious, and cold, and lonely. Grunting quietly, he shook his head, trying to rid himself of such foolish thoughts. Turning on his side, he finally slipped into a light slumber. Little did he know that Zelda had been lying awake as well, having very similar thoughts. It was the crack of dawn the following morning when Link rose from his bed, yawning and stretching before heading out of the stable to prepare their horses' saddles for departure. Less than an hour later, Zelda followed, and by the time the sky shifted from deep orange to vibrant blue, their horses were already carrying them away, the teasing farewells of the Stablemasters fading in the distance. Guiding their trotting horses side by side, they followed the river that wound through the pass between the dueling peaks. Zelda smiled as they rode, watching the water rush beside them as she remembered the day Link had taken her down this same path, her seated in front of him on the saddle while he skillfully shot down any monsters that dared camp there. Since then, it was clear the monsters hadn't returned. Their camps lay in ruin, forgotten weapons and spoiled food scattered around old, unkindled campfires. That was interesting. Now that she thought about it, there hadn't been a blood moon since the calamity had been sealed. Link suddenly called from his mare's saddle, catching Zelda's attention.
You noticed it too, right?
You could tell.
I always notice when you're thinking.
Link glanced at the abandoned monster camps they were passing.
And I saw you look up at the sky just now. It wasn't hard to piece together.
Zelda's lips twitched upward before turning her attention back to the scenery as their horses carried them out of the mountain pass and into the open fields.
I wish I could believe it was simple. Believing that these monsters were nothing more than remnants of a now banished evil. To hope that all we'd have to do is rid Hyrule of these leftovers and then we'd be free.
It would make things a lot easier, wouldn't it?
Zelda nodded.
Unfortunately, the Shaker Slate and the Master Sword are signs enough that beneath the surface there's more to understand. I know we've talked about it before, but it's just as you said on the tower that night. It's curious that the calamity would disperse its power rather than focus it on the one sealing it.
It is, but that's why we're out here, right? We're going to figure this out.
I appreciate that optimistic side of yours. When it likes to show itself, that is.
Link shook his head with another chuckle and turned back toward the road ahead. After a moment, his eyes narrowed slightly. Raising his hand, he signaled for Zelda to pull her horse to a stop, and he did the same. Silently, he pointed up the river. Zelda followed his gesture. It took her a moment to see it, but when she did, her eyes widened in mild surprise. There, sitting beside the river a little ways off the road and half hidden behind a hill, was a small bokoblin camp.
A monster camp? But we're still on the road we took from the castle to Kakariko a month ago, yes? I thought you already took care of these on our ride.
I didn't take care of them all. Some I passed by because they were a little out of the way. Like those guys there. If I'd stopped to clear every camp, it would have been nightfall by the time we reached Kakariko. They weren't in immediate danger, so it wasn't worth stopping.
I see. Do you plan to handle them now? I'm sure we could ride right past them this time as well.
I don't think we'd learn much from a camp with only a few redskin bokos, but clearing them out was part of the reason we started this journey, right? And they could be a danger to other travelers, so might as well deal with them as we go.
There's no need to try and sell me on the idea. I'm not trying to rush to the domain or be the one to determine which monsters are worthy to study. I agree with your sentiment. I'll wait here for you.
Link nodded and tapped Epona's side with his heel, guiding her toward the camp, but almost immediately, he tugged her reins and pulled her back to a stop. He peered back over his shoulder at Zelda, who gave him a confused look. He glanced at the camp again, then back at her, and took a subtle breath, trying to hide his slight hesitancy.
Would you like to put your training to the test?
Zelda blinked.
You'd allow me to? Truthfully, I didn't expect to put any of it to use so soon.
I didn't plan for it either, but it's a different feeling, actually using what you've learned out in the wild like this. You know, against actual monsters.
Zelda knew that was true as she thought back to her first night on the plateau a few weeks ago. Even now, she still shuddered slightly at the memory, something Link didn't fail to notice.
It won't be as intense as the plateau. I think it's best if we start small like this so you can get used to being in these situations. I said I'd teach you right, didn't I?
You did. And I trust you.
Link nodded and signaled for her to climb down from her stallion's saddle. When both their boots were on the ground, he led her toward the riverbank and to the opposite side of the hill from the bokoblin camp.
Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go in and grab their attention. Normally these guys wouldn't be a problem for me, but we're using them as practice, so don't worry about me. I'm going to focus on one, even while the others try to attack me. What I want you to do is stay back here, use your bow, and try to take the others down.
So just shoot them?
Just shoot them. Try to aim for the head, but these guys are so weak that even the torso will do the trick. Do you think you can handle that?
It shouldn't be any harder than trying to hit an apple tossed into the air.
Link smiled and took the Sheikah slate from his hip. After a few taps, one of the bows from its inventory appeared, a bow that looked a bit more powerful than the one Zelda had trained with on the cliffside.
This is a traveler's bow. It's a lot stronger than the one you learned with. It'll be a bit harder to pull back, but you'll get stronger with time.
He held it out for her to take, and once it was in her hands, he tapped the slate again and summoned another weapon, this time a traveler's sword. It was in much better condition than the one Zelda had used previously. Its blade was clean, sharp, and free of chips along its edge.
You shouldn't need this, especially in this fight. But you'd better get used to keeping it on you at all times. When you get a little stronger, we'll work you up to a better sword, but we don't want to use any nicer ones on these guys. The weapons only last so long.
Nodding, Zelda buckled the sword over her shoulder. Link gave her an exaggerated once-over.
You look like a real traveler now.
Zelda rolled her eyes.
I was a traveler well before any of this. Not all travelers need to be skilled in combat.
Well, in this era, they should be. Alright. Are you ready?
When Zelda nodded, Link silently drew his legendary sword from its sheath. He brought a finger to his lips, a sign Zelda understood. Crouching, he followed the base of the hill toward the camp. Peeking out as much as she dared, she watched him approach the monsters before lunging at the one closest to him. Skillfully twirling his sword, he slammed the Master Sword's pommel into its back, causing it to shriek in pain. The other monsters jumped in surprise, their small, beady, and glowing blue eyes snapping toward their Hylian assailant. Screaming and snorting in rally, they grabbed their clubs and spears and charged at Link, who simply raised his sword in preparation. He dodged and weaved as bokoblins swung and leapt at him, effortlessly guiding them into the position he wanted. Soon, he had maneuvered the fight so that his back was to the river, leaving all the bokoblins' backsides facing Zelda. Though she had seen him in battle many times before, it was always impressive to watch how easily Link handled multiple enemies at once. Realizing Link had stopped repositioning them, Zelda carefully stepped out from behind the hill. Taking an arrow from the quiver at her lower back, she knocked it and raised her bow. Just as she had been taught, while letting instinct guide her, she drew the string, bringing the arrow's fletching to the corner of her mouth. After a few seconds to aim, desperately hoping she wouldn't accidentally strike Link, she released. The arrow whizzed through the air and buried itself in the first bokoblin she had chosen, the one furthest from Link. It collapsed lifelessly, its face landing in the river while its body sprawled across the rocky bank. She had done it. Zelda had taken a monster's life by traditional means. Watching a bokoblin die wasn't new to her. Of course, Link had slain hundreds of creatures right before her eyes during their time together, even before the calamity struck. But taking one herself felt different, heavy, and perhaps even a bit disturbing. To think that Link, the other champions, the knights, even ordinary travelers, carried this responsibility every day they went into battle. The clang of Link's sword against a club suddenly echoed, snapping Zelda from her trance. Link was still battling on, taking care not to end any of his opponents for Zelda's practice. Though it was a simple workout for him, if even that, Zelda shook her head, pushing her thoughts away. Now was not the time to contemplate. She had made her choice to take on such responsibility when she demanded to be taken into the wild, and Link was taking her request seriously, even entertaining her earlier desire to help him in battle. Taking a quick deep breath, she pulled another arrow from her quiver, raised her bow, and fired. Another bokoblin fell, and soon after, another, each with an arrow sticking out the back of its head. When only one remained, the one Link was fighting, he finished it with ease. Now surrounded by a group of dead, porcine bodies, he sheathed the Master Sword and headed back to Zelda, who was waiting for him behind the hill. He called to her the moment she was within earshot.
Nice work. You did well. Hitting the skull each time is pretty impressive, especially for your first time. Congratulations. You completed your first battle.
Thank you.
Zelda placed the bow she had been gifted onto her back.
It's all thanks to your training.
When Link stopped in front of her, he inspected her face before meeting her eyes.
Are you alright? It's a different feeling killing a monster without your powers, isn't it?
I suppose it feels a tad more personal.
Zelda looked back at the creature's limp bodies, two lying on their backs, one with its face still in the water, and the last on its side with a large gaping wound that oozed purple blood, staining the stream's clear waters.
They may be monsters, evil creatures created from the calamity's malice, yet they seem so real, like actual living beings. This will be an adjustment.
Yeah, it will be. Just always remember that they aren't real, and you do good by getting rid of them, especially if it means keeping yourself alive.
I understand. And you're right.
She glanced over Link's shoulder at the monsters again, and this time Link turned to look as well. After a few more moments, the bokoblins' bodies popped, leaving nothing behind but a large cloud of purple smoke, with the occasional organ or horn left to remember them by.
I plan to take out any camp I see on the way to the domain. If you're up for it, you can keep practicing. The more you do it, the more you'll get used to it. It's uncomfortable right now, but it'll get easier. And the easier it is, the safer you are.
Zelda looked away from the camp and met Link's eyes. When he looked back, she gave a single nod.
Then we'll keep using this same strategy. We'll ride until we hit Wetland Stable, and then we'll rest there for the night. Sound good?
If that's what you believe is best, then all right.
Nodding, Link began guiding them back to their horses.
There really shouldn't be anything other than bokoblins until then. After that, we'll reach the wetlands, where there are mostly Lizalfos. Them, I'll handle. The wetlands are either very open, or there are a lot of bridges. Neither are good for safe practice. The mountains will have more cover, and I can teach you there. Other than that, there really isn't anything else in our way. I mean, maybe a Hinox, and...
Link suddenly grew quiet. He glanced over his shoulder, looking north up the path they were about to travel. Zelda raised an eyebrow.
And? What else?
For now, nothing. I'll handle the Hinox and anything else that might be there.
Though Zelda wanted to push his obvious avoidance further, she simply nodded, agreeing to his terms. For the rest of the day, they continued on, following the rivers, crossing over bridges, passing through woods, and taking out whatever little bokoblin camp they stumbled across. By the time they reached the wetland stable, the sky had already darkened, revealing the stars and the moon hovering above the land. Climbing down from their saddles, Link undid the horses' bridles before requesting the stable workers board them for the night. This time, however, Zelda went to rent their beds inside the stable itself, while he remained outside, using the cooking pot to prepare their dinner. While sitting on a bench in front of the pot and its flames, he watched the food simmer before looking up into the darkness of the wetlands. He continued to stare until Zelda appeared from the stable and sat beside him.
Are you sure you're doing all right? You took out a lot of them today.
I'm fine. Or at least I will be after a good night's rest.
Zelda breathed, closing her eyes as if taking in the calm ambience around them while the fire crackled.
It's something I must get used to, as graphic as it all is.
You don't need to push yourself if it's really affecting you.
Zelda shook her head.
How am I supposed to travel in this era if I can't handle such a basic survival skill?
Opening her eyes, she looked at the flames beneath the cooking pot, their light reflected in her gaze.
It's a new feeling. That's all it is.
As long as you're sure. You really did well today. Honestly, you did better than most when defeating a monster for the first time.
You know, I keep having to remind you not to flatter me.
It's not flattery. Heck, even some of the travelers I've seen on the road in this era struggled with the weight after having to defend themselves. Not all, of course, but some. Believe it or not, you're handling it well.
Zelda hummed, keeping her eyes on the fire.
If what you're saying is true, then maybe it's because of what we experienced a century ago. It's jarring, taking a life with my own hands, but...
Her mind filled with the sounds of anguish and destruction from that night. The pattering of rain against the grass, the many legs of machines splashing in puddles, the quick beeping before the echoes of lasers being fired, and the screams of people falling as flames flared from crumbling buildings.
It's nothing compared to what we witnessed back then.
Link glanced over at her, but Zelda didn't look back, her eyes seemingly fixed on the flames. It was only when Link suddenly stood did she turn to face him.
What is it? Is the food ready? Are you getting us a couple of bowls to eat from?
Sorry, but you'll have to eat by yourself for now. I have something I need to take care of.
What? Now? Link, it's late and we've only just arrived at the stable.
I know, but this needs to be handled, if it's even there still.
Zelda furrowed her brow.
Do you mean a monster?
Link nodded.
Is it not something you can do in the morning? Will me being there, even at a distance, really be all that dangerous?
Yes.
The change in his tone caused Zelda to recoil slightly.
And even if it wasn't, I'd rather not do it with you there. Not this one. I'm sorry, but I hope you understand.
I suppose I have to if you're so adamant. Though I can't say you aren't making me a tad bit nervous.
It'll be fine. I'll be fine. It's nothing I can't handle. Promise.
All right then. I wish you luck.
Giving her one last gentle smile, he turned away and headed back to the stable's front desk, where he apologized before asking for Epona to be brought back out. After adjusting her saddle, he climbed into it, and after one more look toward Zelda in farewell, he spurred her into the night's darkness. Zelda watched as he faded away, the clopping of the mare's hooves echoing until she could hear them no more. She sat quietly, staring into the void of the night that had swallowed the wetlands Link had ridden into. What was so dangerous that he had to finish it now? Was it so horrifying he didn't think she could handle seeing it? After a few moments of thought, she stood and went to the counter, requesting her horse to be brought out and prepared as well. It was just a precaution. That's what she told herself as she sat back down with a bowl in her hand that she had acquired from inside the stable. For a while, she simply sat, eating her food as she watched the stable hands bring out her white-coated stallion. Once she finished eating and Storm was saddled, she continued to sit on the bench, watching the darkness, waiting for Link's return. As she sat, she occasionally glanced up at the stars, watching as some flickered while others shone brightly. Then she looked at the crescent moon, its light a pearly white, illuminating the tops of cottony clouds as they slowly glided across the sky. Then there was a flash of blue, a quick one that vanished almost as soon as she noticed it. Zelda blinked and rubbed her eyes. Maybe she was getting a little tired, allowing the stressful day to mess with her mind. Taking a breath, she opened her eyes and looked up at the sky again, only to see the flash of blue once more. That one she was sure she hadn't imagined. Confused, she looked back down into the darkness of the wetlands she had been staring at earlier, and her eyes widened. In the distance, she could see blue lights going off in quick succession, a shade of bright blue she knew well. Her heart began to pound as instinct took over. She dashed to her horse and practically jumped into the saddle. Storm reared, neighing in displeasure at the sudden aggressiveness, but Zelda didn't care. Ignoring the questioning calls of the startled stablemaster, Zelda urged her stallion into a quick gallop, tugging at the reins to guide him toward the lights in the distance. Storm raced across the fields and into the wetlands, the splashing of water echoing as his hooves slammed against the watery ground. The lights were getting brighter, the occasional laser visible in the distance. Soon, her ears could hear the mechanical sounds of legs, the whirring of gears spinning, and the terrifying beeping of a reticle beginning its aim. Finally, through the darkness, Zelda could see it. The gigantic, spider-legged piece of ancient technology that had haunted her memory earlier that night. It had a dark, dome-shaped body covered in the same tan swirls as the towers and shrines. All of its legs were long and flexible, bending and contorting in every direction to give it the best stability and speed. The head was a short cylinder with a singular eyeball, one that glowed blue unless it was locked onto a target, in which case it turned a blood red as it prepared to engage. That was a guardian, a dangerous mechanical beast meant to protect them, but it had been corrupted by the very evil it was created to destroy. At that moment, its eyeball glowed a bright shade of red, a thin pointer aimed at its current objective, a small Hylian circling it on horseback. That Hylian was Link, his glowing sword in hand as he guided his mare through the water, trying to avoid the attack he knew was coming. The guardian stomped towards him, its powerful legs exploding against the ground, waves forming as it barreled after its target. The beeping of its eye grew faster as it perfected its aim. Even from a distance, Zelda could see the reticle locking onto Link's chest. In that split second, Zelda saw the scenery change. She was suddenly in a war-torn field, her white dress dirty and her feet bruised, though this was nothing compared to Link, bloodied and broken in front of her, still trying to defend her despite the odds as a guardian loomed over the two of them.
Link! Link!
The call burst out of her instinctively, one she didn't even realize she had shouted until it was too late. She could see Link's attention snap away from the Guardian and toward her, confusion and surprise filling his face. That glance away, that split-second turn of his neck, cost him dearly. Horrified, Zelda watched as the Guardian's eye instantly shifted from red to a blinding blue, taking advantage of the opening it had been given. A long, thick beam of focused heat was fired through the air faster than any arrow and struck Link square in the chest. The force of the impact sent him flying off Epona's back. The mare reared on its hind legs and bolted from what she perceived as her own impending doom. The laser carried Link away before he and it exploded in the water, sending up a large wave. Zelda sat with her mouth gaping, staring at the rippling water where Link lay sinking until he was no longer visible. That was on her. Calling his name distracted him. A strike from a Guardian laser wasn't like a simple hit from a Bokoblin, or even one of the Lizalfos Link had mentioned. Zelda had seen firsthand how destructive Guardians were, from her research before the calamity, and even more so from witnessing them in action during it. It had all happened so quickly, everything in less than a moment. There hadn't even been time to attempt to use her power to save him. Her foolishness had just ended Link's life. Before she could fully process the loss, the Guardian had already turned its attention to her. It began stomping toward her, forcing water aside, its eye shifting once again from blue to red. Zelda's breathing grew heavy. This was the plateau all over again, but worse. This time, Link wasn't there to save her. Not anymore. Suddenly, she felt a sharp jerk, snapping her out of her spiraling thoughts. Storm was squirming beneath her, sensing the oncoming danger. He tossed his head, as if urging her to guide him away from the mechanical beast, maybe even debating whether to flee on his own. Seeing this, Zelda inhaled. Though shaky, the breath steadied her slightly. Link had survived worse. It was possible that he was simply injured and lying in the water. And even if he wasn't, there were still Epona and Storm to protect. Link would never forgive her if anything happened to his mare. With trembling hands, she pulled her traveler's bow from her back and drew an arrow from her quiver. Staring at the oncoming Guardian, she raised her weapon and nocked the arrow, just as she had done many times earlier that day. The Guardian wasn't slow by any means, but it wasn't as fast as she knew they could be. Inspecting it closer, she noticed one of its legs had been severed, sparks flying from the sliced joint. Link had already done damage. Still breathing carefully, she drew the bowstring and aimed at its eye, just as a red dot appeared on her chest. Its beeping grew louder the closer it came, and faster as its aim improved. Taking one more breath, Zelda released the arrow. It shot through the air and stuck the eye dead center. With a mechanical whine, the Guardian's body crashed into the water, its head jerking violently as its eye sparked, trying to recalibrate. Despite her successful hit, this was no victory. She had hoped it was damaged enough for her to finish it, but despite its injuries, the Guardian was still active. In moments, it would rise and chase her again, and this time, it would catch her. Another arrow likely wouldn't do any better. Panicking, she glanced back at the broadsword on her back. Should she attempt to fight it? She wasn't confident she could defeat a Bokoblin in a proper duel, much less a Guardian. Should she run? Turn Storm around and gallop away? But what if the Guardian followed her back to the stable? Everyone there would be in danger, and it would be her fault. Again. What was there to do? The Guardian finally began to recalibrate, pushing itself out of the water. Its eye locked on to Zelda again, who was preparing another shot, when a sudden boom echoed across the wetlands. Zelda's ears rang as she dropped her bow and arrow into the water, Storm rearing beneath her. A wave of heat washed over her, forcing her to shield her face. Peering through her fingers, she saw a large, fiery explosion behind the Guardian, which collapsed into the water again with a splash, jerking violently. Smoke billowed around her in the machine, followed by the ringing of a whistle and the distant neigh of a horse. Before the Guardian could rise again, its previous opponent appeared, tugging his horse to a skidding stop between it and Zelda. Zelda's eyes widened at the sight of Link's drenched backside, his blue tunic slightly singed from the point-blank laser he had taken. Was she seeing things? A ghost, maybe? He had a strange aura around him, different to the one she remembered her father having when she watched Link with her powers during her self-imprisonment with the Calamity. This one was more bubbly? With a bow of his own in hand, he pulled an arrow from his quiver, one with a red lump tied around its arrowhead. Efficiently, he knocked and fired it, aiming for one of the sparking wounds in the Guardian's damaged exterior. Another explosion roared, forcing Zelda to cover her ears. Before she could fully process what was happening, Link leapt from Epona's saddle and dashed through the water toward the Guardian, switching the bow for his legendary sword. In a final attempted victory, the Guardian fired a rapid succession of short lasers, but missed each one as Link sidestepped them, letting them splash harmlessly into the water. Once close enough, he jumped, landed on the Guardian's body, and drove the tip of his blade into its eye socket. With a final groan, the Guardian jerked violently a few more times, its insides glowing a bright blue before finally collapsing for good, its head tilting to the side as its lights dimmed. It was functional no more, once again a lifeless relic of the past. Sheathing his sword, Link climbed down from the machine's body and hurried back toward Zelda, passing Epona as she dismounted Storm to meet him.
Link!
Immediately, she wrapped her arms around him the moment he was close enough.
Are you hurt? Did you get hit at all?
No, I'm fine. I promise. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It's my fault you were struck. I thought I'd lost you again.
No, I'm okay. This time, I promise.
Notably, Link had decided this was best to place a hand on her back as he returned her hug.
Zelda, what are you doing out here? I told you to wait for me at the stable.
I could see the battle even from there. The light, I could tell what it was, and I couldn't help myself. I apologize.
No, it's my fault for not saying anything. I'm sorry.
Why wouldn't you tell me it was a Guardian you were facing?
She finally pulled away from him.
Even for you, those are still incredibly dangerous.
I didn't think you were ready to talk about them yet, especially after what happened with the plateau. That wasn't good judgment on my part.
It wasn't.
Though she was scolding him, she pulled him back into a hug.
I really thought you were gone.
Pulling away again, she inspected his body.
There's not a scratch on you. How are you all right after that?
Well, I wasn't for a good 2 seconds there. Mipha's grace, her healing ability from 100 years ago. I have it. I thought it had vanished after we beat the Calamity, but it's still here. I guess I got lucky.
Lady Mipha's power.
Zelda thoughtfully placed her hand on Link's chest. Closing her eyes, she lowered her head.
Thank you.
After a pause, she lowered her hand and met Link's eyes again.
Regardless of what you say, I still apologize. It is my fault that you were distracted in the first place.
Link gave her a soft smile.
It's fine. You did well, you know.
Me?
Yeah, you. I was only able to catch up in time because you shot it in the eye and stunned it. That must have been an amazing shot. I'm a little sad I didn't see it myself.
Zelda smiled, accepting praise she didn't feel she deserved. Instead of responding to it, she glanced down at the arrows sitting in his quiver.
Those arrows.
Oh, these are bomb arrows. I'm sure you've heard of them before. Not that you would have been allowed anywhere near them back in the day. They're pretty dangerous, but effective if used properly.
I can see that.
She looked over at the machine behind them.
The Guardians. So the Calamity does still have control over them.
Yeah. The monsters weren't the only things it decided to resurrect.
Zelda's body shuddered at the revelation.
That's a terrifying thought.
After a few moments, Link placed a hand on her arm.
We can think about this tomorrow. Let's head back to the stable. Now you really do need some rest after that. I need to take some time tonight to put these guys at ease.
He gestured toward the horses, who still looked startled at the battle that had just ensued.
I don't think Epona is too happy about having a laser pass so close to her. I owe her a lot of apples now.
Maybe I can feed Storm a few myself. He did well.
She reached out to pat Storm's side.
I could tell he wanted to escape but stayed regardless. He was a brave horse today.
I trained him well, but that also means you handled him perfectly. In that situation, most horses would have darted off. He decided to trust you.
I'm glad he did, and I trusted him.
With a smile, Link gestured toward him, a sign it was time to head back to the stable. The ride back to the stable was quiet, both of them enjoying the tranquil ambience of the night after the ear-ringing explosions and lasers they had just endured. Again, Link tended to the horses, sincerely apologizing for keeping them working, while Zelda returned to the bench and the cooking pot, letting the fire warm her as she went through the slate's inventory. The moment Link returned to her side, she spoke.
I'd like to take a bath if that's all right. These clothes aren't going to finish drying anytime soon, and I can imagine the wetlands aren't the cleanest waters in Hyrule. Would you mind if I bathed in the river behind the stable? It's safe, is it not?
It is. We clear out the monsters, so you'll be okay. Even the Yiga don't usually come very close to the stables. Not without good reason, anyway. But I'd still prefer it if you didn't stay out long, just in case. I'll stay here and make sure no one happens to head to the river themselves.
I'd appreciate that.
With a tap on the slate screen, a new tunic appeared in a flash, one they had purchased before leaving Hateno and had dyed a nightshade blue. Bidding Link a temporary farewell, she made her way behind the stable and through the woods, arriving at the river. Removing her soiled clothing and preparing her fresh set, she slowly sank into the cool water and sighed, feeling the dirt and grime of the day wash from her skin. Though it was peaceful, she couldn't allow herself to fully relax. Despite Link's kind words and encouragement, one thing was for certain. He had gotten hurt because of her. If it weren't for Mipha's power, Link could have been much worse off. Sinking deeper into the river, Zelda thought back to the Zora princess. Mipha had always been a close friend of Link's, always choosing to stand near him or follow him whenever possible. They had been friends since childhood, she'd been told. Suddenly, something Mipha had said during their final encounter came to mind.
I was thinking about what I do when I'm healing. You know, what usually goes through my mind. It helps when I think about...
Think about what? What would come to your mind?
If she remembered correctly, she was sure she had seen Mipha glance toward Link when trying to give her advice. Zelda looked down at the water glistening in the moonlight as it flowed around her body. Slowly, she raised her hand from the water and looked at its back, where 3 golden triangles had once been illuminated.
Would you think about Link?
At the request of Hyrule's king, a group of outsiders came to greet us at the domain. One of them was a Hylian child, of only about 4 years of age. His name was Link. He made quite a first impression. He was curious and full of energy with a ready smile. Are all Hylian children that way? One thing that surely sets him apart is his swordsmanship, which I hear is exceptional. He has even bested adults. He must be somewhat reckless, however, as he was covered in bruises. Wishing to be helpful, I healed his wounds for him. It must have been his first time seeing healing magic, as he looked up at me with big round eyes. It was adorable.